Hello, everyone. Welcome to Aligning with Purpose, a podcast where we explore themes of finding your true purpose, from quitting corporate, moving cities, practicing holistic health, and more. Join me as we discover our purposes together. My name is Julie Oshinaga, and I'm so happy you're here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Aligning with Purpose again. I am so excited to have Angie Hawkins on our podcast today. She is an incredible, powerful woman, and I'd love to introduce her. So, Angie Hawkins is the inner glow coach who transforms women from chasing love and approval to radiating confidence so they can finally feel happy, free, and loved for who they are. She works with women who have done therapy, read books, tried the spiritual path, but still feel like something's missing. Through deep inner work and identity transformation, she helps them break the cycle of not feeling enough so they can experience real love, confidence, and peace without having to change who they are. She's the author of Running in Slippers, a raw and vulnerable memoir about finding resilience after an emotional rock bottom. Angie has moved from Chicago to Hawaii on her own, jumped out of a helicopter and into the ocean, Navy SEAL style, bungee jumped, skydived, and cliff jumped, yet is still terrified about allowing herself to be seen. So, welcome, Angie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk more about you. Your story is incredible, and I think it's so important for us to have these raw and honest conversations. So, I'm really excited to hear more about your story and for people to connect with who you are today. So, before we get started, I have a section in the beginning of the podcast episode called The Beauty in Humanity. And it's really for us to connect with ourselves more deeply on a day to day basis. We can have a lot of things going on in our lives. So, with that, there can be anxiety, stress, all these things that we feel. And when we can be grounded in our own bodies and really be present with ourselves and see the beauty in humanity, that's when we can start to flow with more love and bring more light into our world. So I'd love to start with you and grab your beauty and humanity moment for the week.
Yes, something that happened to me last week. I had a Zoom call with an old coworker of mine because we used to work together in corporate America. She left a little bit before I did, and the last time that we talked, so it's probably been like a year now. I was still in corporate America, and I was like miserable, whatever. But anyway, so it's been quite a while since we caught up. But anyway, I was talking to her, and at the very end of the conversation, she was like, "I love you." And she said, I've been making it a practice to tell people that I really care about, that I love them, because I don't think we are saying it enough. And I was like, I love that so much. So I, in turn, have started practicing that.
That's really, really beautiful because I know that I have a hard time saying I love you. I think it's like discomfort, but for her
Yeah.
to put that into practice and probably for you to hear that firsthand too, I'm sure was very powerful. So I'm glad you're able to share that experience with her. And it sounds like you have a good relationship with her. So
Yeah, and it is awkward to say it, but since I've started doing it, the person on the receiving end is always like, it just makes their day. So it is kind of awkward to get over the initial hurdle, but it's really worth it.
okay, I'm gonna have to try that with my parents, with my like friends that I'm close
Yeah.
to, but we just don't get around to saying the verbal words. So I'll have to try that
Yeah.
this week. I'll share my moment from the week. And I went to the New York Library. I live in New York, so we went to the library. They had the New Yorker exhibit this week, and the library itself is incredibly beautiful. The architecture is just like I went to Italy last year, and it was comparable to the architecture in Italy. And in the library, we had three instances of wedding planning slash love that we saw, and it was just so beautiful. And so the first thing we saw was a wedding photo shoot. She was in her full gown, and the groom was also in his suit, and they were taking photos. And I was like, wow, that's beautiful. Of course, the space is beautiful. The second instance was a couple practicing their slow dance. They were also getting their photos taken by photographers. So I knew this was like an engagement photo shoot. And then the third instance, actually, I'm gonna back up a little bit. So they're doing their slow dance, and I didn't want to be that weird person, but I was like, I'm not gonna get their photo, like their faces, but I want to just get the movement of what they're doing because I thought it was just so beautiful, and I just wanted to like
Yeah.
remember that for myself. And then this guy comes up to me, and I thought I was going to get in trouble. I thought he was their friend. So I'm like, oh my God, he's going to tell me that you can't film my friends. So I was just fully prepared to apologize. And he's like, hey, can you take my phone and video me proposing to my or like my boyfriend? And I just
Oh my
couldn't.
God.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe that I was going to be part of this moment. And this was like the third love story thing that we were seeing. And it was so funny because the first thing I told him was, "Oh my gosh, that's so much pressure." But I of course did it, and it was just so beautiful.
Well, and that one's different because you were like in the mix because you were
Yeah.
recording it for him.
Yeah, I
Oh,
got to
that's so
record it.
cool.
It was so beautiful, and they were just so like, the love was radiating, after the proposal, and it's such a sweet moment, yeah. It made me really happy that I could help and be a part of their special day in a sense.
Yeah, I've always wanted to witness a proposal in person. I haven't yet.
I am really, really excited to talk to you today. And I know you've been through so much of life. I want to get to know and start from the very beginning of who you are. You're now in Hawaii. I know you
Yes.
moved from Chicago to Hawaii. So I'm sure there's a lot in between that has happened. Walk me through how you ended up in Hawaii.
So I'll start at the very beginning. As a little girl, I grew up in a home. Well, first of all, I grew up, and when I was 6, I had a Hawaii Barbie that had hair down to her butt. And I found that so fascinating. And that began my fascination with Hawaii. So I want to put that in there because it was ingrained in my head from a very early age that that's like a place I wanted to be, even though I had never been there. But I also grew up in a home with emotionally unavailable parents. And as an adult, I can understand what that means. But as a child, you just don't have the tools or knowledge to be able to interpret that situation. So the way I interpreted it was I developed a belief that I didn't deserve to be loved. So, as you're probably aware, your beliefs dictate your behaviors, and that dictates what you experience in the world. So I struggled for a very long time because I was always a people pleaser and perfectionist, looking for things outside of myself to prove my worth because I didn't believe that I was inherently worthy without any of that. As a side note to Hawaii, as an adult, one of my friends lived there for like 5 or 6 years. It was around, I think she moved in 2007. And so I would visit her every year. So that was the first time I actually physically visited Hawaii, which just further fed my obsession with it. But I always had all these limiting beliefs as to why I couldn't do it. So it was just kind of this idea where, like, someday or one day I would like to live there, but I was never actually taking any action or truly believing that it was even possible for me because my self worth was so low. It was like, I truly did not believe that happiness and fulfillment was something that was even available to me. So I was just trudging through life looking for love and approval in all of the wrong places. But the first turning point was in 2017, and my dad passed away. And I was 37. I had spent 37 years running away from my feelings, numbing my feelings, doing everything I could not to feel my feelings. But the grief was so profound, it was impossible not to feel it. And he died in early 2017. So I basically spent the rest of the year feeling like shit because I was feeling all these feelings and I didn't know what to do with it. So I was just like sitting in it. And then when the calendar turned to 2018, it was probably like the New Year's resolution energy. I was finally like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I want to actually do something with my life so that I can be happy. So that's when I decided to move from Chicago to Hawaii. I was like, I'm actually doing this. And it was well intentioned in that I was actually taking agency over my life and doing something to be happy. But in hindsight, it wasn't well intentioned because I was still looking outside of myself for the thing that made me feel better. I thought like my change in location would be the thing that made me happy. And even today, I feel like a lot of people look at me and think, like, oh, your life is perfect because you live in Hawaii. And I know people think that because they've said that to me. And it's like my life isn't happy or whatever because of where I live. It's happy because of me.
So you mentioned that you didn't truly feel like you deserved love when you were
Yeah,
younger, and that theme carried on for a lot of your adulthood. And then now your life is great because of the inside and who you are. So, how
exactly.
did you get to where you are now?
So I moved to Hawaii, and you can't move away from your problems. So I was basically just having the same existence and same experience in a warmer climate. And I was not happier. Like, despite what you may think about, oh, if you live in a sunny climate where it's warm all year round, like you must be happy. And that's not true at all, because my internal world was just a place of unhappiness. And there was like a series of events that happened, but basically there was this, because I moved here in 2018. So there was like this 2 year period where it was just like thing after thing after thing was going wrong. Like my grandma died. Like I was able to keep my job and work remotely, but there were like this huge management shakeup that threatened my role. So I was living in fear of losing my job. But it was like for 2 years nonstop. It was like thing after thing after thing. So in general, that can wear you down regardless, right? But then COVID happened, so that just exacerbated the entire situation. And then the straw that broke the camel's back was the end of a relationship during COVID. And the relationship wasn't even that long. It was just like the last thing that I could handle in this 2 year string of events. I definitely had that feeling, because I think we all have this feeling multiple points in our lives where it's like, I can't take this anymore. When does it end? I was definitely feeling like that. But then layered on top of that was this sheer feeling of hopelessness, because I truly did not see any hope for the future. And that's such a dangerous place to be. So I intentionally overdosed on my anxiety medication. And I spent a day and a half unconscious in my home, another day and a half in the hospital. And when I was released from the hospital, I called a friend and I told her everything that happened. And she said to me, "It's not your time." And that was so profound. And in that moment, I just had this total epiphany that changed my mindset, because I was like, okay, I think I'm here for a reason. I don't know what it is, but I want to figure it out. But in that moment, I went from this victim mentality of life is happening to me and there's nothing I can do about it, to, okay, the way I've been living my life has not been working very well. So I want to start living it differently. And I'm the person who's accountable for that. And so that, I call it my healing journey in earnest, because from that moment on, I actually took accountability for my own healing and living life a different way. And that's what totally changed my life. And that's how I became happy and fulfilled from within.
Wow, I got so many chills when you were sharing your story, and the depth of what you're saying. I know it's relatable to so many that are,
Yeah.
I guess there's a lot that people can feel that they don't know how to process these emotions and how to increase the value and like the love that they know that they deserve. So I know you mentioned in your bio even that you still have a sense of feeling that you don't fully feel comfortable being seen. And
Yeah.
how is your relationship with knowing that you deserve this love now, but also this fear that you're still grappling with?
That's a good question. Well, my fear from being seen, it stems from having a very critical mother. So for a long time, because she even criticized me as an adult. So it was always easier for me to hide. It felt safer for me to hide than allow myself to be seen and open myself up to the criticism. So like the fear, I think it's always going to be there, but it's just how I respond to it, because I don't let it hold me back. And especially in conversations like this, it's not always easy to talk about my story, but I share it. Number one, to let people know that they're not alone, because I know there's so many other people who struggle with mental health, and certain conversations are heavily censored. So it's not always easy to openly talk about my story. But also, I share my story to let other people who are struggling know that there is hope for the future, because trust me, if I can turn my life around, anybody can. And I know how that feeling feels of the sheer hopelessness, but it's never that hopeless for anyone.
You mentioned that you intentionally overdosed with all the pain you were feeling. And then after you got out of the hospital and the conversation with your friend, you just had this epiphany where you knew that your time wasn't now and you're going to take that matter into your own hand. What do you think it was that shifted that mindset for you?
It was when my friend specifically said it's not your time because, we were having a conversation and she specifically said those words and it was so profound because I truly could have died. And I was like, but I didn't. And, it just made me think. And again, I think I was still in this space of hopelessness because I didn't feel any better than I did before I took the pills. So, in this space of hopelessness, it was like, it just kind of gave me something to grasp onto like, I think I am here for a reason. And again, I didn't know what that reason was. I'm still not totally sure, but I feel like if you are alive on this earth right now, that you are serving a purpose. And so it just gave me motivation to actually participate in life, be a better person, and find my own happiness and fulfillment, and then spread that to other people.
Right, right. Yeah, I completely agree with what you just said that everyone has a purpose. And despite what your journey is, it's so important to see that you matter
Yeah.
and your life is so, so powerful. And no one, no instance, nothing can take that away from you. I know you talk about the shift that happened. And for those that are struggling with all these internal voices in their head of feeling not good enough or feeling like a victim to their situation, how can they quiet those voices that they've been feeling for decades or however long that they've been feeling that for?
Yeah, I definitely recommend getting professional help because someone outside of you is always going to be able to see your blind spots better than you can. And for me, I had tried traditional therapy and it hadn't worked for me. I know some people who they have good therapists and it works for them. It had not been working for me. So I was at a point where I was desperate to get better. And I was like, okay, I already know that doesn't work. So I need to find something that does. So I actually invested in myself and hired a coach and through his help. And the main thing we worked on was basically, he calls it being a functional adult. So it was like showing up in this world because as a child and teenager, we develop these behaviors that protect us in this environment where we're under the care of our parents or caretakers. And while they serve us in those environments, like for instance, my people pleasing and perfectionism, it was keeping me safe in those environments. But as an adult, it was really dysfunctional. And I was truly like my own worst enemy. I was the cause of a lot of my problems. And because underneath all of this, I also had really chronic anxiety and depression. And once I started showing up in the world differently, basically as a functional adult, my over time my beliefs started to change because I started trusting myself, I started respecting myself, and my behaviors were in coherence with that. So over time I really started to believe like I deserve to be respected, I deserve to be loved. And so like over time it like truly changed my beliefs to where I was like these new behaviors were just like on an unconscious pattern like my old behaviors had been.
And I know that you're also a coach now. When did you decide to get coaching and what made you know
Yeah.
that this could be a career path for you?
Yeah, and just to be totally clear, I wasn't sure that it was the right path. All I knew that therapy had not worked for me, and I'm trying to think. It was like a little over a year before I overdosed. I had gone to this healing intensive, and that's how I met the coach I ended up hiring. And the funny thing about that was he was actually a men's dating coach, but like we were connected on Instagram. And the thing is, he wasn't like a pickup artist type coach. He would teach men how to be the best versions of themselves so that they could attract the right partner for them. So he would teach them about being authentic and whatever. And so his messages really resonated with me. And so I reached out to him and I'm like, hey, I know you coach men, but I need help. And so we had a conversation and started working together. So I just got really lucky because there's also bad coaches, because just like there's bad therapists, there's also bad coaches. But I got really lucky because he was a really good coach. And through working with him, because I was working in corporate America, But when you're a people pleaser or a perfectionist, like your identity is in everything outside of you. So a huge thing for me was figuring out who I really was because I had always been conforming to things outside of myself. So through my own healing journey, I was discovering who I really was. And I was working in corporate America. And that's when I started realizing, like, this is not aligned with who I am. I had basically just conformed to society's arbitrary rules of like going to college, getting a stable job, whatever. And I was like, this is not for me. I would love to say at that point I was had the courage to quit my job and start my own business, but I did not because I was attached to I had a nice paying job, so I was attached to the paycheck, I was attached to the benefits and all of those things. And but I'm a firm believer that if you are not on your path, the universe will put you on your path. So what happened was in corporate America, I was transferred to a team and my manager was a raging B word. And I usually do not even use that word to describe females because I think it's disrespectful, but she earns that title. But anyway, I was so miserable and my physical and mental health had totally tanked. And I remember one day after work, I went on a hike and I had like another epiphany. And I was like, I could be a coach and help women go through the same transformation that I went through because I know there's other people struggling with the exact same things. It took about 3 more months for me to quit my job because I was like, I have to get to the point. Because every time I thought about quitting, I would just have an anxiety attack. So I was like, okay, I have to get to the point where I can think about quitting without having a total anxiety attack. And it took about 3 months, but I did it. And I just quit corporate America cold turkey and went all in on my coaching business. And it's way more fulfilling. Like entrepreneurship is not for the weak, but it's like I am so much more happier and fulfilled with this job than I ever was in corporate America.
A lot of things I could relate to, and I am also a firm believer that the universe is going to put you on your path if something is not meant for you. And that is, 20 years in corporate America, I'm sure that taught you so many things
Yeah.
and finally putting yourself first. With going through this journey of being in corporate America for 20 years, going through some toxic moments with your boss, and then having this realization that you can also be the change in others or help them be the catalyst for them to change their lives and their journeys. What gave you the courage to finally take that leap? 3 months is pretty quick.
It felt like a long time. I think mostly because I was so miserable, but I think the key things were because I had already done a lot of inner work on myself. So first of all, I trusted myself, I believed in myself, and I remember anytime the fear came up, I just had to reiterate to myself like I'm the kind of person who figures things out because for me the biggest uncertainty was like I've never been an entrepreneur. I had done some coaching and group settings, like just kind of on the side in my corporate job, but I felt like a total imposter actually doing it full time on a one on one basis. And anytime I caught myself doubting myself for the reasons of not having the experience, not knowing enough, etc., I just kept reiterating to myself, like, I'm the kind of person who can figure things out no matter how difficult, scary, or uncertain. Because I remember that was my mantra when I moved from Chicago to Hawaii on my own. Because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is scary, blah, blah, blah. And I was so ready to up level and make a change in my life that I was like, it doesn't matter because I'm the kind of person that figures things out no matter how difficult, scary, or uncertain. So that was my mantra when I quit corporate America because I was like, I've already proven to myself that I can do things like this. I just need to do it.
Yeah, that's very powerful because I think there are people again who know that they're capable of it, but there's those limiting beliefs and that
Yeah.
fear that holds them back from really going for the things that they know that they're capable of. So I love what you said about trusting yourself and knowing that you were someone that was going to figure it out no matter what. Because I think there's so many people that underestimate that they can figure it out when
Oh,
it
yeah.
comes down to it.
And that's the work that I do with women because a lot of those fears and beliefs, first of all, they're not facts, but also they're not even their own beliefs. They came from their parents or society or school systems or corporate America systems. And it's like, we don't care about that anymore. We care about believing in ourselves and trusting ourselves and just worry about yourself. That's my whole coaching philosophy. It's like when you're focused on you and if you're being the best version of yourself you can be and working on yourself, you really do stop caring about what anyone else thinks.
Right. No, I completely agree. And so you train to become a coach.
Yes.
And what is the difference from your perspective, what therapy and coaching is for those that don't know the difference?
Yeah, and I'm just speaking from my experience because, again, I know there are good therapists and I know there are bad coaches. But for me, the difference was I would go to therapy and we would talk for an hour, and it feels good in the moment because you have someone who sees you and understands you. But then I would leave and I would be like, what am I supposed to do with this information? And I remember I would even ask my therapist, well, like, is there something I can be like doing or whatever? And she's like, no, we're just like processing your thoughts or whatever. And like for me, that just wasn't enough. But with my coach, we would have a conversation. And then, like, for example, when I first started working with him, I had zero boundaries. So we would have a conversation about boundaries, and he'd be like, okay, your homework assignment for this week is to, like, set a mini boundary. Like, you have to start small, but it's like it would give me something to do, and it like would start building my confidence and motivation to do more. So usually with my homework, even if it was like, okay, just set one boundary, I would usually set multiple because it would build that confidence and motivation to actually show up. And again, those behaviors and acting in coherence with my new beliefs is actually what changed my beliefs. So for me, it was actually modifying my behaviors in real time as I was living my life, as opposed to just having a conversation about it.
It sounds to me like therapy is processing your emotions, which is also powerful. But in
Yes.
coaching, you were able to get the understanding of those concepts, but then find the action items that were
Yeah.
paired with that so you can start to put that into practice and change your life. I'm glad you were able to find a powerful coach that helped you with that. And so now, with your coaching methodology, you use the GLOW method.
Yes.
What is the GLOW method and how do you help women with the GLOW method?
So the GLOW method is an acronym. G stands for go back to your childhood because usually any behaviors or beliefs that we have can be traced back to one big limiting belief that we developed in childhood. So, for example, mine was that I didn't deserve to be loved. So, any other belief or behavior I had always could be traced back to that one limiting belief. So, when you figure out what that is and can actually modify your behaviors based on that belief, it's it's such more effective and efficient change rather than like putting band-aid fixes on things. So the very first step is going back to your childhood and uncovering what that main limiting belief is, and then the rest of our work revolves around that. And L stands for light yourself up because my current program, it's called Shine from the Inside because it's based on this concept. We're all born with this light inside of us. Like you see little kids, they're running around and screaming and they do not care what anyone thinks of them. But then we go through life and like society or family or school systems, they tell us what we should or should not be doing. So we start conforming to things outside of ourselves. So my program is not about fixing yourself or changing who you are. It's just about rekindling that light inside of you. And the amazing thing about that is because the work to change your limiting belief, that takes time, but you can start doing things to light yourself up immediately. Like my whole thing is like do at least one thing a day that brings you joy. So that's the main pillar of L, light yourself up. O is about overcoming external validation. So that's the overarching theme of the program. Because again, if you're focused on you and if you're living in integrity of your values, if you are happy with who you are, you stop caring about what anyone else thinks of you. And that doesn't mean like I still have moments where like someone made fun of my classes the other day on TikTok. And yeah, it stung in the moment, but within maybe 15 seconds, I was moving on with my day and really didn't care. So it's not that you don't have feelings about it, it's your ability to refocus on what's really important and not give into that external validation. And then W stands for welcome yourself back home because again, it's not about fixing yourself or changing who you are as a person. It's just coming back to that light inside of you.
Wow, those are all extremely powerful, and I also wanna mention I love your glasses. I think
Oh,
they
thank you.
are amazing. Yeah, no, I love
They're very
them.
polarizing. Some people hate them, some people love them. And that's another thing I feel like, because I'm afraid of criticism, but I feel like the worst thing people have said to me is about my glasses. And it's like, first of all, I don't care what other people think about my glasses, but also I can take off my glasses. Like,
Right.
it's not a personality flaw. You know what I mean? So I'm like, that's like really not even that big of a deal.
Yeah, no, isn't that interesting is that they'll make the comment about the glasses, but that's not like you said, you can take them off, they're not you, and,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like, even if it were a criticism on you, it really goes to show, like, they're giving you where they're at, and it's,
And that's another thing, like, after me doing the work on myself and my clients, once they start working with me, you really start viewing people as who they are. Because I think with external validation, we tend to take it personally and absorb it as the truth. But, like, for instance, the guy who made fun of my glasses, I honestly, my first reaction, I was like, oh my God, that's really sad because he must be really hurting to lash out at a stranger negatively online. You know what I mean? Because, like,
right.
where is he at in his life that made him do that?
It's just incredible because I know you talked about your journey from feeling like you didn't deserve love in your childhood, and then now, even this instance, right? And maybe in the grand scheme of things, it could be a tiny incident, but you're able to take this and not let it permeate who you are. And I
Yeah.
think that is extremely powerful that you're able to fully be so full with who you are, your value, your worth, that comments like that don't truly affect the core of who you are.
Yeah, and that is the power of the work because I used to let stuff like that crumble me. Or even over the weekend, I went to this birthday party and it was hosted by a friend of mine, but I didn't know her other friends. So I didn't know anyone there. And I'm the kind of person, if I meet someone new, I'm curious about them. So I'm asking questions or whatever. But I had conversations with a few people and nobody was asking questions about me. They were just talking about themselves. And I was really proud of myself because old me would have taken that really personally. But I was just like, okay, that's just how they are. Like, I wasn't taking it personally at all. And that is so powerful because I was able to walk away being like, okay, this is how it is and move on with my day. Whereas old me, I might have let that affect me for days. Like, why weren't they interested in me? Like, what can I do to make them interested in me?
So many great examples and lessons for everyone to take away from, because it's truly, everyone just shows you something and then you can choose to mirror back, what you're growing from it. So I think
Yeah.
that is incredible.
Yeah.
So, as a coach, I'm sure there are so many incredible moments, especially seeing your clients get that breakthrough. What have been some of the most amazing moments that you've experienced as a coach? And do you feel like you're now living in your purpose?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are so many. I remember this was one of the first pieces of feedback that was given to me because I call myself an inner glow coach because in my own journey, again, it took a while to develop these new beliefs and it wasn't something that happened overnight. It was just eventually over time. And I just remember eventually I just started feeling like this warm glow in my chest. And I was literally like basking in my own self love. And I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to love yourself. So that's why I call it the inner glow. And I remember one of my clients, we had been working together and she came to me and she was like, you know what? She started to feel that glow. So, first of all, that was amazing. But also, she was like, her maiden name is Light. And she was like, I kind of forgot that that was my name because she has a dysfunctional past with her family. So I think she was trying to run away from it. But it also made her embrace her maiden name of Light because she felt that light within her. And so it made her like embody the light within her. And I was like, that is so amazing.
Like her actual name,
Yeah. And she
reminding her,
forgot. I'm like, how can you forget? That's amazing.
yeah, the power that she holds. What is something that you're learning from your clients that is helping you on your journey as a coach?
It's definitely helping me learn self compassion because a lot of my clients come to me as like how I was before. And I sometimes I just want to be like snap out of it because actually a lot of people come to me like fresh out of relationships or out of divorce. So their entire identity is wrapped up in that other person. And I just want to like shake them and be like, you are amazing. He was not, like, you need to forget about him. But like, I remember how it was. So I have to practice a lot of self compassion for that stage in life because trust me, I get it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's also the amazing part is that you're able to see where all the other women were at and see sort of like where you were
Yeah,
once and show
no,
yourself that compassion too.
yeah, it really is like a mirror because it's like, oh, this is what I sounded like. And it actually makes me appreciate my coach even more because I was like, because he was very compassionate with me.
Yeah, no, just even speaking to you, I'm like, I feel the power and the glow radiating from you.
Ooh,
And
thank you.
I think it's incredible because anyone working with you, I'm sure they are restoring their power too. So
Yeah, and it's such a cool process to witness because it
yeah,
really is just taking your power back. You don't have to become someone new or play a role. Because I've read some self-help books about, like, there's one about alter ego, and I can't really get on board with that because that's like playing a part of someone else. Like, you just need to be yourself.
yeah, exactly. Being yourself is key.
Yeah.
And I know you wrote a memoir about your
Yes.
life. I'd love to hear more from, I guess, from your words, what you experience, what you talk about, and why is it called Running in Slippers?
I'll start with that because I feel like I always forget to explain. So, Running in Slippers, first of all, the actual story, how the title came about, is the introduction of the book. So, I won't give that away. But I live in Hawaii and we call flip flops slippers. So, it really means running in flip flops. And running in flip flops is a metaphor for life because both can be adventurous, playful, and fun, or it can be dangerous, painful, and scary. And the book, Running in Slippers, it's a memoir. It covers this 5 year train wreck period of my life. And it starts with my dad passing away. It goes through my overdose and a little bit into my healing journey. But it's basically how I used to live my life because there were all these misguided attempts to look for love in all the wrong places. And then I finally started working with my coach and I was like, oh, I think the love is inside of me. So it's basically all of the details of the very abbreviated version I told earlier. Oh, and it's very vulnerable. And the reason I wrote it that way and the entire reason I published this book is because I feel like, on social media, everybody's hiding behind filters and edits. Or even in real life, if someone asks us how we're doing, we're like, oh, everything's fine. I'm okay. And we're not really talking about the shitty things that happen to us. So this book is like all of the shitty things that happened to me in this 5 year period.
One, it takes so much strength to be vulnerable. So I commend you for doing that and being the light to be able to show up in this way because I think it's easier, right, to hide behind a mask and to
Oh, yeah.
show the good things and the highlight reels. And, there's days where I get trapped in that too because it's easier to show up that way. But when you can authentically and vulnerably share that is extremely, extremely brave, and it's gonna help a lot of people.
Yeah, it's funny because it was terrifying to do, but everybody who's reached out to me, and I'm talking even complete strangers, their feedback is how relatable it is. I mean, I've even had people say this exact same thing happened to me. So that's just proof that we are all going through these things. We're just not talking about them.
Yeah, it's crazy that it's a lot of experiences that we have in our human experience. It's more relatable than people think. So
Right. Because even though the specifics are a little bit different, in general, we go through the same things.
right, right. It's just uncovering, being vulnerable to sharing it, and then connecting in that way. So I
Yeah.
think you definitely give that platform to be able to share that. And I think that is powerful because I think it's, especially now with social media blowing up, it's
Yeah.
easier to, again, just hide and like not share these moments. So
Thank
thank you
you.
for sharing this part of your story. And so I want to also do something a little fun. I'm going to do a little rapid fire question with you. It's going to be a mix of questions that are related to you, personal and fun. So
Okay.
I'll start off and then you can answer in as little or as many words as you want. Chicago deep dish or a fresh Hawaii poke.
Oh, poke.
And then describe self love in exactly 3 words.
It feels good.
Skydiving or bungee jumping.
Skydiving.
And why skydiving?
Bungee jumping is terrifying because it's just a straight free fall, whereas skydiving, there's two reasons. One, you have the air resistance, so it feels more like floating or flying rather than a sheer free fall. Also, you have a certified instructor strapped to your back, so it just there's the illusion of it being safer.
Mm-mm. Yeah, 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 yeah. I think I would choose the same. And I know you've done both.
Yeah.
Did you do both after you realized that you can conquer anything, or was that just something that you wanted to tackle from like your bucket list?
Well, how it happened was I went to New Zealand about a year after I moved to Hawaii because I had just learned this concept of feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Because I thought successful people just didn't feel fear. And I was like, oh, that's how they do it. So I planned a solo trip to New Zealand and Australia, which that in itself felt terrifying to me. I now love to travel by myself. But at that time, I was like, oh my God, that's so terrifying. But then as I was researching things to do in New Zealand, allegedly bungee jumping was invented there. So that is the thing to do if you go to New Zealand. And I'm like, well, if I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And so I went bungee jumping and it was so scary that despite everything I've been through, that is the one thing to this day. If I find myself being too scared to do something, I'm like, well, I've been bungee jumping, so I think I can do this. So I recommend going bungee jumping for that reason, because if you can prove to yourself you can go bungee jumping, you are unstoppable. You will do anything.
Okay, that's a good. I'm gonna take note on that because I am terrified of bungee jumping. It's terrified of skydiving too, but more so bungee jumping.
Yes,
But
I
I
think you
think
should do it. Yeah, for
okay.
that reason.
Okay, I'll definitely consider it, if I ever come across one that is safe. Uh, and so one thing you wish you could tell corporate Angie 10 years ago,
Oh, quit immediately.
and favorite way to celebrate a win.
My favorite way is to like to do a little happy dance. Admittedly, I don't do that all the time, but yeah, I like to do a little dance.
Yeah, I love that. Shake it out.
Yeah.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
The strong one or the soft one?
The soft one. I definitely identify more with being the strong one. But I feel like whenever anyone's told me, oh, you're so strong, I actually don't see that as a compliment because it's like, I don't want to be strong. I just developed that as a protective mechanism because I actually want to be soft.
Right, right. I think it's similar to when people say, I don't want to be the resilient one because
Yeah.
it's with everything that they've been challenged with in their lives.
Yeah.
Complete the sentence. I am my most radiant when I am blank.
Mm. Basking in my inner glow.
I love that. That's beautiful. And so I want to move on to a question about that's related to the name of this podcast. And a lot of people have survived their trauma or they're working through their trauma. And it takes an intentional effort
Yeah.
to dive headfirst into it. So, what is the difference in getting through it and really putting in that intentional work to get back on track to align with your purpose?
I mean, I think that that is the work to being aligned with your purpose, but I think that's also why doing things that bring you joy and lighting yourself up are such an important part of the process because doing the inner work, I think there's this misconception that healing is like all rainbows and unicorns. And I think once you get to a certain point, it does become more of that. But the initial inner work is very hard. There's a lot of shadow work involved. You really have to face a lot of things. Like for me, it was facing how much I had contributed to how miserable I was. And that stuff is not easy. But I think when you are also living in this act, because two things that can exist at once, this was also a huge part of what I had to learn on my healing journey. Because it's like, yeah, I can be doing like this dark, hard work and I can do something that lights me up and that's fun. And I can do those at the same time. And being connected to that inner light is aligning with your purpose. So even though I know the healing journey can be hard and every step is technically aligning with your purpose, I think you feel more aligned with your purpose when you're doing things to light yourself up, which should be done in conjunction with the healing work and the inner work.
What you're mentioning is really good, actionable steps that people can take. So it's really helpful to hear. And what does then aligning with purpose mean to you? I know you kind of covered that, but as an
Yeah.
overall sense.
Ultimately, I feel like it means leading a life that is happy and fulfilling to yourself. So, because I think people get wrapped up in like, I need to make X amount of money, I need to be checking all these things off the boxes. But I feel like your life can be fluid and things can change and things can happen, and maybe things don't look the way you want them to do. But if you have this internal happiness and fulfillment and can trust the process and can trust, like, maybe my life doesn't look the way I want it to now, but it will in the future because I'm taking the steps to make it that way. It's just like truly having that internal happiness and fulfillment no matter what is going on around you.
Looking inward and just knowing that you're, not taking it from the external and then focusing back on what truly lights you up. That is an important message for everyone. So, thank you for sharing your take on aligning with purpose. And your story is just one that's going to continue to help others, and even the work that you're doing to help women reclaim who they are. I think that is just one of the most like noble jobs that someone can take. So, thank you for doing what you're doing and sharing your story on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you.
And so, where can listeners find you on social media? And if there's anything upcoming, I'd love to give you the floor for that too.
Yes, thank you. The best way to reach me is my website, which is innerglowbyangie.com. It has the places I'm most active on social media are Instagram and YouTube. So it has my links for there. There's obviously links for the book. There's also links for my coaching. And usually the initial call with me is an application process. But if you come to me and say that you've heard me on this podcast, then you can technically bypass that process. And I do offer a free 60-minute Find Your Glow session where we do G of the Glow method and we actually find out what your main limiting belief is. And even if we don't continue working together, that's such valuable information to have, because even if you would prefer to work with a therapist, you could just go to your therapist and be like, hey, this is my main limiting belief, so that they know exactly what to work on. But it's a really powerful call, and everyone I have that call with has a breakthrough. So if you're interested, when you fill out the application, just say that you've heard me on this podcast, and I will send you the link to book the call.
Amazing. And I'm going to put all your links in the show notes so people can just click and it's easy for them to access and find you. So I'll make sure that's all there. And that is a lot of value that you can get, and highly recommend you check out Angie's coaching program. And this was such a amazing conversation. I'm so glad that you were able to come on today and for us to share the story out. I think it's so important to really hear from real, honest voices. So thank you so much, Angie, again. This podcast episode is going to be available on YouTube for the video version. You can hear it on Spotify, any of your favorite streaming platforms. It'll also be available in clips on our social media, which will be Instagram and YouTube, and also TikTok at aligningwithpurpose.pod. And my personal one is at Julie Yoshi. So thank you so much, everyone. And thank you so much, Angie, again, for coming on the podcast, and looking forward to sharing more stories.
Yeah, thank you, Julie.
Thank you so much.